Has an odd ring to it. Inland Port Authority.
Today, the city of Omaha began the process of gaining more local control over tens of millions of dollars earmarked to transform North Omaha. Brian Mastery joins us now in the newsroom with the reasons why.
John, Aaron, right now the state controls the money, specifically the Nebraska Department of Economic Development. Mayor Stothert's team today introduced an ordinance at City Council, a path that would ultimately lead to local control of those dollars, and two state senators in Omaha tell me they welcome this move.
The inland port puts a focus. We have a dedicated body that's going to be focused on North Omaha, around the airport, and making sure it's developed and coordinated. We have a lot of different projects going on, but we got to make sure it's coordinated.
Here's the area in question. It's close to an airport, major river, interstate, and railroad. Those are all requirements to be considered for this new governing body with local control. Now, in the 300 acres around Eppley, recovery money is already earmarked for a $90 million airport business park, $30 million innovation hub, a truck route, a $35 million multi-purpose facility. And Senator Wayne McKinney feared that if these once-in-a-lifetime dollars aren't handled with local community control, with transparency and accountability, they won't be able to leverage those dollars into unmistakable change in North Omaha.
Why is this so important in your view?
I think it's important because, we've been talking about this economic recovery in North Omaha for the past 3 years. And it's a lot of money on the table. And my whole point and hope from the start is just to ensure that the resources that were allocated are utilized in the best way and create the change that we envisioned when we started.
There will be a public hearing next Tuesday over the Inland Port Authority designation before the Omaha City Council. If approved in early January by the council, the paperwork's then sent to the state. Local governing board would comprise of 9 people appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. I left a message with the governor's office this afternoon for reaction, but haven't heard back. On your side in the newsroom, Brian Mastery, 6 News.